What's up everyone? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about how to play the piano by ear. Now this is something that I think every piano player nowadays should aspire to. Playing the piano by note is great, but I think playing the piano by ear is even cooler. Okay, so let's talk about it. The first thing you have to do is learn all of your scales, okay? There's no getting around this. Learn them all. There's 12 keys and 12 scales, so you've got to learn them all. And once you've learned them, maybe learn 2 octaves, maybe learn hands together, maybe learn 4 octaves, so you can just keep expanding. But learn them all so that they become second nature. Second thing, learn all your minor scales. There's 3 basic minor scales. There's natural, which is related to the relative major, so if we do A minor. There's harmonic, which is a sharp 7. There's melodic minor, which is sharp 6 and 7 on the way up and natural on the way down. The next thing you want to do is learn all of your triads. So this is major, minor, suspended, add 2, augmented, diminished. Okay, so learn all of your triads and then learn the inversions of those triads, okay? And this will really get you going in the right direction. And of course, learning all 12 of these, right? So 12 major chords, 12 minor chords, 12 suspended 4 chords, okay? There's all different types of chords, so learn your triads. That was probably the ones I just mentioned are the most important in my opinion, and then there may be a few others. So then learn the inversions of all those chords. You could take your root position chord and put the C on top, and then you have a first inversion, and then you put the E on top and you have a second inversion chord, and it's still a C chord, right? And these are just different inversions of that. So you can do that with all of the triads. Your playing will get much smoother when you learn the inversions. The next step, start to learn the different sounds that each chord has to offer, right? This sounds different than this, and it sounds different than this, and it sounds different than this. And start to learn the differences between each of these chords, and then that will help you to learn to play by ear. The harmonic content of 3 notes playing together at the same time and kind of the different sounds that you get. Start to notice the difference between those, and I think that'll put you in the right direction. In my opinion, the next step is then to just learn a bunch of songs that you want to learn how to play. Now that you know the chords and you know the scales, go Google, some chord charts, or there's so many different options. Ultimate guitar tabs, varying levels of accuracy. There's tons of websites, music stores where you can get good charts and just start to kind of play through them. That was what I did when I started learning. Is my sister had this book full of chord charts that we did at the church, and so then I just started to just kind of like work through the book, playing chords that I knew how to play the chord, but then figuring out the context of how it all worked together. I wasn't exactly sure, but you just have to start trying it. And I think once you try, you'll start to learn little tricks. It's like a snowball, one step forward at a time. And one song after the next, you'll start to learn little things that compound over time. If playing by ear is something that is really important to you, I actually offer a course that dives deeper into these topics. It's called Church Piano 101. And I take you from basically not knowing anything, or maybe you just know a little bit, to then at the end of the course, you should be able to play, I say you should be able to play in church, or play basically any song that you want with the knowledge that you've acquired along the journey. Now, it's about 5 hours of practice in between each video, and it's 10 videos. That's what I'm recommending in order to get to the level that I want you to get to by the end of the course. If that's something that's interesting to you, check out the link below for Church Piano 101. The next step, in my opinion, is starting to learn your chord extensions. So once you learn the triad, a triad is another name for a 3-note chord, so like C major. Then start learning your extensions such as 7s, 9s, 11s, and 13s. Okay, these chords can add a lot more color to your triad. Instead of just being a 3-note chord, all of a sudden you have all these extensions. And those are the notes that add all of the color that make it sound that much better, that much more professional. So I would say once you learn your triads and your versions, then move on to your extensions and just start incorporating those into your music as well. You may not learn these steps in the exact order that I've laid them out, but these are just all the tools that you'll need. So this next step, some might put it a lot earlier, but I would say learning the number system is huge. The number system is basically a way to start to play by ear, where you take a C scale, for instance, and you give every note a number. So C would be 1, D would be 2, E is 3, F is 4, G is 5, A is 6, B is 7, C is your 1 again. And then not only that, but then you put a chord to each of those notes in the scale. The 1 chord would be major, 4 chord and 5 chord are major. And then if we're staying in the diatonic scale, your 2 chord, your 3 chord, and your 6 chord are minor. Your 7 chord is a diminished chord. Okay, so this is like staying within the scale. We call it diatonic. We're not leaving the scale. That's a great thing to learn, is the number system. And then you can start to cross over into different keys. Once you learn a song in one key, thinking about it in terms of number system, then you can just transpose it easily. This is a great transposition tool, is learning the number system. And also just, it's kind of what underlies all of music is the number system. You can start to play in any key, basically, once you get the number system down. And then, once again, ear training is a huge part of this. So you can make this a game. Once you have the concept of the number system down, you can start to use your ear to learn each specific note. So if you just heard a cadence and now we know we're in the key of C, if I just play one note by itself, you should start to be able to try to figure out what that note is. And that sounds different than this note, which sounds different than this note, which sounds different than the 3 and the 1 and the 5 and the 6 and the 7. Each of these notes has a specific sound once you know what key you're in. And this is called training your relative pitch. So once I know I'm in the key of C, I can pick out, boom, that's my 3, that's my 5, that's my 2. And this is something that's possible. It takes some training. And this has nothing to do with perfect pitch. Perfect pitch is kind of a thing of its own, and it's not even something that you can learn. It's just you have it or you don't. Relative pitch can be developed, and you can develop the skill of picking out each note relative to the fact that I know that we're in the key of C, right? So once you know you're in the key of C, you know, we can play a song and I could tell you the chords pretty much for most songs, all right? So that's the difference between relative pitch and perfect pitch. Perfect pitch is kind of like a God-given ability that very few people have. But relative pitch, I think, is something that anybody can really develop as long as you have some kind of an ear for music and you're not completely tone deaf, which I think very few people are actually tone deaf. It just takes training. Once you get the number system internalized, the next thing is to be able to start to pick out the bass line in a song. I think that's like the first priority, is picking out the bass line. Because with this, everything kind of builds up from the bass, okay? So find the bass note in a song, and that will give you good context for everything else that's happening as far as the chord goes. The next thing I would like to start to pick out is the melody line. Okay, if you can start to pick out some of those lead lines, that can also happen once you start to play by ear and you start to think about each note as a number. Melodic lines will start to come to you a lot easier. The third step is finding all the notes in the middle. Once you have the bass line, the melody, then finding all the notes in between, maybe a little bit trickier, but once again, once you learn all of your triads, you know, major, minor chords, suspended, add twos, your inversions of all those chords, your chord extensions, all of a sudden finding the harmonic notes in the middle will be a lot easier because you already have at least some kind of understanding of what's happening. Then there, of course, are anomalies of things that happen that are not a part of those boxes that we build with, you know, triads necessarily, or even extensions. And those can be also figured out just because you've at least established some kind of familiarity with the chords. Then when you find an exception, you can pinpoint what that is because it's something outside of maybe what you already know and recognize right off the bat. The next step would be to start to use your ear to identify those notes that are outside of your major scale, okay? These are called chromatic notes. So within the key of C major, we shouldn't have any sharps and flats, but the chromatic scale is this, right? It's every single note between, you know, whatever key you're in, C to C or F to F or D to D, whatever key you're in, the chromatic scale has every single note involved. So the next step is to start to identify those notes that maybe a flat 7 in the key of C, right? Has a certain sound, or the flat 3. This has a certain sound, or the sharp 4. These chords, I think, are the secret sauce in songs. Sometimes when you go outside of the key, that's when something magical happens, and it's the best part of the song when you do something that's not exactly expected. And it's something that makes a song sound really awesome, is when you can put these extra chords in there that are not exactly part of the major scale. It sounds a lot more interesting. Like the 4 chord, for instance, is supposed to be major if we're staying within the scale, but all of a sudden if we make it minor, it has a whole different feeling. And that A flat note is outside of the scale, but your ear will start to be able to figure out what these notes are the more you train it. A bonus thing would be to learn some altered chords, such as, a C7, sharp 5, sharp 9. When you're sharping something and flatting something else, or, basically an altered chord is anytime you take, it's not just an extension, such as a 9 chord would be this, but a flat 9 would be something like this, where we're taking that 9, it's supposed to be like this, and we're flatting it a note. So alteration is basically flatting something that isn't usually flat, or sharping something that isn't usually sharp. That's kind of like a bonus thing. It's sort of a next level type of thing, but that's also where some magical chords happen in those altered chords. So that's sort of like a next step you could do. And then one other thing I would say is find a group of friends to play with. Playing with people is where it just makes it much more fun. This isn't something that you should just do by yourself. So find, a church band or a garage band or some kind of band or group of friends that are about on your level, or maybe just a little bit above, because then they'll push you to further heights and it'll make it a lot more enjoyable along the process of learning music and how to play by ear. So these are the tools that you need. It's not something that you learn in a day, but over the course of, months and years and hours of practice is something that can be achieved. So I hope this is helpful today. If this is something that you want to jump into, I also offer Zoom one-on-one lessons. So if this is something that you're like, yes, I want to do it, but I need a little bit more direction along the way, check out the link below. And I do offer Zoom lessons. You can see what I have available currently, and I would love to connect with you. Until next time, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.